Good morning. This is James Robinson coming at you live this morning on YouTube. I'm going to do a video and I'm going to talk about white nationalism, white supremacy, if you want to call it that. I don't like to use that term. But let me get to the white genocide, the white separatist Jared Taylor. I don't have a problem with Jared Taylor because he is what he is. I mean, all white nationalists and so-called white supremacists, they always use their dialogue based off of so-called historical facts and empirical and scientific investigation and research and the compilation of data that has been compiled over time between the so-called races. See, a white supremacist mindset is one of ideology. White supremacy is an ideology. It's not a race. It's an ideology that has been conditioned throughout the world, the mind, and it has trampled the earth. White supremacy is the mindset that one set of people are better than another genetically, historically, scientifically, geographically, and so on and so forth. They live in this hodgepodge that their brains are larger, that the IQ is higher. Okay, first of all, IQ is a man-made concept. You can't measure man's intelligence because man learns every single minute. You can't understand his empirical understanding, how he can therefore know things that he's not taught. That's when you get into the realm of trying to say there's a God, okay? But one of the biggest issues I have with those kind of people are the fact that they want to take credit. They want to claim something that's not theirs. They always look at Africa and they're talking about, well, they had no written language and they had no culture and this and that. Well, if they had none of that, why in the world did you go over there in the first place? Why did you investigate their lands and ultimately seize their lands? Well, I'm going to tell you something about the European Renaissance of learning and them being ultimately pioneers and developers of technology and so on and so forth. Had they stayed in Europe, it would have never happened. Their technology and their so-called inventions, because really everything that the Europeans lay claim to predates them. Look it up, research it. But what happened is they went to different areas of the earth and compiled information and data, and they fused it together with their own. And that's how they became the pioneers of their colonialism and imperialism. The Native Americans over here in the Western Hemisphere of the United States and the indigenous Africans and Australians and New Zealanders and other people didn't do that. What they did, they stayed amongst themselves and they kept to themselves, which basically caused their demise. Now, I'm not going to do a long video because I could do 2 hours at least on just talking about how the Europeans came about. But I don't think that's important to do. It's not really impervious. I will leave that to another time. But what I want to talk about is how so-called black people respond to white nationalists, white supremacists. Or I said white superiorists. Yeah, that name sounds a lot better than supreme. Because what's going on, their self-esteem is not very strong. Anytime you got to beat another man down to stand tall, you're not very much in to begin with. And they, along with a lot of so-called black nationalists and black supremacists are in the same boat. And I don't follow either one of them. Because both of them are dinosaurs. And they need to be put out in the pasture. They're not the future of the earth. They're not. And they infiltrate our worlds with this garbage called supremacy and intelligence. I don't even get into arguments about people believing in anything that is true. They want to believe that nothing ever existed in Africa, so be it. If they want to think that their nationality and origin is so great, so be it. My great-grandmother told me a long time ago, you will never get anywhere arguing with a fool. And most of all, you will never win an argument when you're arguing with a fool. You find a fool, you leave him. If he wants to believe in these things and his reality has become a fact to him, let him stay where he's at. I know for certain, as well as does most, that the place called Africa created some of the greatest civilizations and artifacts ever known. But do you think a white supremacist is going to give them credit for that? Come on now. They're not supposed to give you credit for anything. The whole reason for a person being a white supremacist or a black supremacist or any other kind of supremacist is to beat you down any way they can with false facts, innuendos, suppositions, insults. They got to feel better than you. That's what being supreme is all about. It's an ideology. It's literature. It's genre in literature. It's not factual. It's been played out like this ever since man has been able to think of himself as being a mountain amongst men. Lying is the key of the day. If you want to dominate people, you do it through language. You do it through written words. You write history. You show facts that have been put together by you and your people alike. So-called white supremacists, they compile their information amongst themselves. And they make it known on a local, national, and international level. That's how the European races, well, not all of them, but the ones that came to power came to exist as being prominent. You show something in a book, speak it out of your mouth, dingle a little trinket here and there, you can take the land, the mind, and the person out of their own life just like that. But when you're talking about trying to debate a so-called white supremacist, and they're talking about diversity doesn't work, diversity works and it doesn't work. It's twofold. And they're talking about their race being extinct. Well, let me ask you something. If your race is getting ready to be extinct or you're worried about it, why do you call yourself a white supremacist? Or why do you don the mantle of being superior intellectually to anybody else? If you're so damn smart, you can figure it out for yourself and you wouldn't have to make raves about it. You wouldn't have to make videos, have debates, write books. You would know what to do to save your existence, okay? And that goes for anybody. That goes for whoever it may be. Whether you're black as the ace of spades or pale as Casper the Ghost. Okay? So that's an oxymoronic predator right there. You can do it. If you got the brains, you know what you need to do. The United States is not a European country. Never has been, never will be. It wasn't founded by Caucasians. There were people already here. And for those so-called white supremacists, I would say get with it, either deal with it or go on about your business. But I'm going to stop right there because I'm going to hit on Tariq Nasheed. I saw a very embarrassing debate between him and Jared Taylor yesterday. It was embarrassing. Tariq Nasheed, I should say, got taken apart. The man was literally reduced to a child by Jared Taylor. And you want to know why he was reduced to a child? Because all he talked about was white supremacy, white supremacy, white supremacy. There is no such thing as white supremacy. It is a mindset that anyone and anything can have. And basically, when I'm saying Tariq Nasheed, if you had any insight, any intelligence, any understanding, you'd have never even started using those words. You'd have never debated him based off of race. That's what the man is trained for, to debate race. When you want to debate somebody, you want to get the truth out of them, you put them on the offensive, not the defensive. Tariq put Jared Taylor on the defensive. And what Jared did was sit back, laugh at him, ridicule him like he was a monkey, and then took him apart at the seams. Every time Jared Taylor would ask Tariq a question, it was always white people, white supremacists is the reason. White supremacists this, you're giving power to these people that are of this nature. You're giving them power when you announce this. When you say it's white supremacy, you automatically giving them power. I don't call them white. They're not white people. That's another problem. We refer to them as white people. They're not white. The problem with them, the problem that they're having and their concerns is the reason that they're not white in their nationality. They are worried about losing white status. They so-called white supremacists and white nationalists is worried about losing white status. It has nothing to do with culture, ethnicity. It's white status. They know what white status is. They know they have it. They've been using it. And white status is something that you can incorporate. It's social. It can be ethnicity to the point that I want to adopt somebody else's. That's what the Spanish do. That's what the Africans do when they come here. And the Arabs, they put themselves down as white because they identify with the establishment that rules. But it's not a complexity thing. It's a status, a legal thing. And Europeans or Caucasians are worried to death about losing their white status. While so-called black people or Africans, African Americans, want to hold on to that black status, which means absolutely nothing but death. It means death. Okay? See, if what Tariq and a lot of people don't understand, and well, we're not trying to educate people like Jared Taylor. Forget him. He's not that important. It's that each age presents certain types of people. Each age. There are people that existed and strived and flourished in 4000 BC that is down now. You don't stay up forever. People evolve and they devolve. Cultures do the same thing. Nothing lasts forever. The Europeans, before the Moors went to Europe, basically were in ruins. Well, then you talk about the Romans and the Greeks. Well, the Romans and the Greeks consisted of a lot of different people. They were first melanated, and then they became assimilated with lower part of the Europeans and this and that. But we're not talking about 4,000 years ago either. We're not even talking about 3,000 years ago. See, one of the tricks that's always used about Egypt is a European name. They claim Egypt. They can claim it. They can claim the artifacts. They can claim the history. But they never do it with Kemet. If you ever notice, they never refer to the land as Kemet. It's a different scenario. Kemet is the place where all of the great civilizations existed. Kush, Kemet, Nubia, Carthage, Phoenicia, Canaan, Assyria, Samaria, all that stuff like that. Somalia. The list goes on and on. It goes on and on. But the European is clever. He disguises it. He claims Egypt as his own. And he can do so when you look at the way they use the name. When you remove the name, you put another spin on things. You can camouflage and take over a whole man's existence just by a name. You give it an identity that's not its, it's yours. Egypt has the identity of the European. Kemet has the identity of what you call the black man. Enough of that. What you don't do, you don't try to reason with people like this. They're not reasonable. That's why they are who they are. And they got all kind of people on their payroll. I would listen to this autistic, retarded man called John Robinson. He's half Filipino and half Indian, and he hates black people with a passion. He cannot stand anyone non-white. And he doesn't like mixed races either. He said that mixing of the races is not good for the white people. But he himself is half Filipino and half Indian. How sick and stupid can you get? But see, those are the type of people that the white people that call themselves supremacists, or the so-called white people. Now, let me correct myself. I don't like to use white to identify somebody's culture. The Europeans or Caucasians use people like this. We've had them before. We got them in the so-called black race. It's no biggie. They're all over the place. They always are people that are going to look to other people's culture and to want to emulate it and want to therefore be a part of it and love it and defend it. But at the end of the day, they don't have any more stake in the future of those people that they are protecting and upholding than a dead dog. Okay? Well, as a people, we understand this. It's not equal. It's not equal anywhere. And if people want to be to their own, so be it. I'm not here to integrate anybody. Integration was a bad idea anyway. It did not help the so-called black man in America. He integrated into a burning house. What was needed was human rights. And we do not have human rights here. We have civil rights, which are bound to be annihilated and repealed at any time by the establishment. We don't have civil liberties. And by civil law of the civil rights, a police officer cannot be held responsible and be prosecuted by law for killing an armed or unarmed so-called black man in America. Okay? You have no human rights, so-called black people. You have none. And people like Jared Taylor know this. He knows. Him and his cohorts know. And they know what's the deal about this so-called white genocide. White genocide is nothing but the loss of white privilege, white status. That's all it is. I would love for a lot of these so-called conscious brothers and sisters to start understanding the reality of the day, go back and read and research, get off the Afrocentric bullshit, and get themselves together and start living in the real world and claim America. And stop claiming Africa. Claim America. And understand that this is your land. And you don't need a validation of these people that's already against you to therefore allow you to uphold your claim that you are indigenous to America. You don't need that. You don't need it. I don't need people that call themselves white nationalists or white supremacists to validate me. You're looking to the wrong people for validation. They're not supposed to validate you. They're supposed to put you down, subjugate you to being at the lowest of the low, or look at you as if you're nothing, came for nothing, is nothing, and gonna be nothing. That's their job. Applaud that. Matter of fact, welcome these type of people. Hell, be glad when they get out here and start talking this bull. That's what they're going to talk anyway. I've never met one yet that ever had anything good to say in a positive parameter about non-pale people. Why would they? Their agenda is to put you down, to keep you subjugated into a mindset that they are better and you are inferior. In other words, it's like a man that's going to commit suicide. Why would I go out here and tell you that you're just as good as me and show you historical data that you, at one time, all your people presented as such a great civilization if I am anti-you and if I'm pro-me and I feel that I'm supreme? Doesn't make any sense. So to find validation in one of these people's minds and hearts for your well-being is stupid. And at the end of the video, Tariq just became a child. He was begging his daddy to tell him what they could do. It had got just that bad. He had been destroyed. His brain had been tapped by Jared Taylor so bad till Tariq got up there and started begging his daddy, the great white man, what can black people do? It was sad.